Hello, Excellencies, Innovators, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this session. This is a continuation of our virtual exhibition of innovators, and it's a part of the Science, Technology, and Innovation Forum of 2021. My name is Stephanie Rambler. I'm a Sustainable Development Officer at the Department of Economic and Social Affairs at the UN. As we get started, I'd like you to take a look at the Slido on your screen and look at the poll and let us know where you're joining us from so we can have a sense of the community that's online today. To open this session, I am very happy to welcome Ms. Špela Stres, Director, Innovation and Technology Transfer Center for the Jožef Stefan Institute in Slovenia. Špela is a member of the UN Technology Facilitation Mechanism 10-member group and part of the leadership of the STI Forum. So we're very happy to have Špela. Over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Dear guests, dear innovators, thank you for the invitation to speak at this eminent forum of innovators, of the winners of the 2020 and 2021 call for innovations. The technology facilitation mechanism is based on multi-stakeholder collaboration between the member states, civil society, private sector, scientific community, United Nations entities, and other stakeholders. And the goal, as ever, is to enhance international cooperation and access to science, technology, and innovation, and to enhance knowledge sharing on mutually agreed terms, including through a global technology facilitation mechanism that I'm proudly being part of for the past 3 years. The goal is also to promote the development and the transfer and the diffusion of environmentally sound technologies to developing countries on favorable terms, and to fully operationalize the technology and innovation capacity building mechanism for all countries, and to enhance the use of enabling technologies, also the information and communications technology. Within the past 2 years, hundreds of millions of people have been affected by the new coronavirus. There are several other significant health issues in the developing world, such as maternal mortality, deaths of newborns, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other infectious diseases. And we think it is essential to support the research and development of vaccines and medicines. We should provide access to affordable essential medicines and vaccines following the Doha Declaration on the TRIPS Agreement and public health. They both enable the right of developing countries to use to the full the provisions in the agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights regarding flexibilities to protect public health and, in particular, provide access to medicines for all. We believe that another essential pillar where technology and innovation can have a significant impact in protecting our global environment is foreseen in Sustainable Development Goals in SDGs 13, 14, and 15. There is no doubt that climate change is one of the most significant challenges of our time. In the last 150 years, greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere have skyrocketed, particularly carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Technological innovation in addressing societal problems, such as connected to air pollution and water pollution, is a more recent development, but increasing scientific knowledge, developing research capacity, and transferring technology is essential if we wish to improve ocean and terrestrial ecosystem health. And they are even more crucial to enhance the contribution of biodiversity to developing countries, mainly least developed countries and those directly threatened by global warming. So to conclude, innovation is of the utmost importance to address all these issues, and this is why we have gathered here today. So without further ado, we shall give the floor to the innovators and their views on this changing and hopefully very innovative world. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Špela. Thank you for that excellent stage setting of all of the challenges that are facing these innovators and all of us, and that real call to action. So very much appreciated, and we look forward to hearing how the innovators will respond. So now I'd like to look at our poll. Please keep filling it in, but right now it looks like 30% of us are coming from North America, 26% from Europe, 21% from Asia and the Pacific, 19% from Africa, 5% from Latin America and the Caribbean. And these numbers keep going up. So please, as you log in and join us, please do fill out that poll so we can have a good sense of where you are coming from and where you're sitting now. So with that, I would like to welcome Ms. Shweta Govani, lead for Global Innovation Exchange at Results for Development. And Shweta will share a few details about the next steps for our sessions today. Shweta, over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So really quickly, we'll get started with the session here very soon on environmental innovation. So if that's a session you'd like to attend, you're in the right room. As we would say in person. But if you'd like to move over to the maternal, newborn, and child health innovations panel, that's happening on a different link, on a different live stream link. And you can access that through the blue box under the Q&A section. There's a link there that'll take you over to the MNCH panel. That's going to be starting momentarily. So you go ahead and click on that if you'd like to attend. But if you'd like to stay at the environmental innovation session, stay right here. And back to Stephanie, who will be our moderator for that session.
Thank you so much, Shweta. And welcome to all who are staying here in the environmental innovation session. I think it's going to be a very exciting conversation. I've gotten the chance to get to know our 4 innovators in a few sessions in advance, and I'm just inspired by all of them, and I think you will be too. As you'll see, the 4 innovators that we will be hearing from today have tackled serious challenges in their own communities, and they've responded to a real need in the local communities where they're working. But although the challenges are local, they're linked to a lot of global megatrends and challenges and very serious issues that are facing our world, including climate change, pollution, and waste. And they are classic sustainable development solutions to these problems, because not only do they address the environmental challenges, but also the very real social and economic realities of the people in the communities where they're working. And these connections among social, environmental, and economic, of course, that's the heart of what sustainable development is. And we've found that these links are even more apparent and undeniable throughout this COVID pandemic. And we'll hear a lot about how our innovators are addressing COVID in the session as well. So I think that we'll hear from the 4 innovators, and they'll be drawing the connections, like I said, between their local challenges and the global situation, also connections among the 4 of them. We also want to make connections with the audience and with the participants out there, that I know that a lot of you are eager to interact with them, and so we're going to try to make that possible. And first of all, I want you to take a picture of this slide or jot down the contact information, because usually this exhibition and these sorts of events happen in person at the STI forum, and it's always one of the highlights of the forum to have the in-person exhibition, and people visit with the innovators and exchange business cards at the end of the sessions. Of course, we can't do that here in this virtual situation, but I want to try to recreate it as much as possible. So do get their contact information, ask the questions in the Q&A through the Slido, and we'll go over that in a second. But really try to make those links, because that's one of the strengths of this event. So please do what we can in this virtual reality where we're living now. So now, to help make the interactions possible during the session itself, there is a Slido, and I think if we can go to the next slide, just so that you can get familiar. You'll see this on your screen. There's the Q&A section of the panel, and you can look and just add your name and organization, put your question there at the bottom. You can still fill out the poll. So the poll is that one that I mentioned at the beginning. So you can shift back and forth between the Q&A and the poll, but most of our attention will be on the Q&A now, so that we can hear what you would like to ask the innovators when the time comes for that. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our 4 panelists. We have Jane Ngugi she is the CEO of Lejan Energy from Kenya. We have Andreas Kohling, he's the Deputy Managing Director of Build Up Nepal. We have Mo Tarek, who is the CEO of Earth, working in Malaysia. We have David Gallagher, who is the CEO of Aeroson, which is a sustainable social enterprise model for sanitation, and he's working in Nepal. So now I think I would like to get our innovators on stage, on the screen, and I will start with Jane. Jane, if you could tell us a little bit about your innovation, and then we'll go down the list and we'll have time to talk among ourselves and with the audience. So Jane, over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone from wherever you're logged in. My name is Jane Ngugi, as Stephanie has mentioned. I'm from Kenya, Lejan Energy Limited, and we are in the renewable energy sector. And a little bit of where we started back in 7 years ago, I had a little baby around 6 months, and I used to use a small cook stove in the house for space heating. And then I noticed every time I use the cook stove, because we used to use the normal black charcoal, there's usually a bit of smoke, so the baby would cough, and that would really get me disturbed. On the other hand, I was also keeping poultry, and during the season for brooding, we needed space heating for the chicks so that they can be able to have the warmth of the room. And with time, I also noticed that the smoke from that charcoal was affecting the chicks. And I started researching what can be done so that I get space heating that does not affect the baby and does not affect the chicks. So on the other hand, while I was going up country, every time I used to go up country, I used to see heaps and heaps of biomass waste thrown in the environment. And I always used to wonder, what can be done about this waste? Isn't there anything that can be done? And as I was doing the research in the country, I came across the briquettes. And the briquette is a fuel that is used for cooking and space heating. And I got interested in it, and that's how I came about to do briquettes. And the briquettes, we are now and our value proposition was in the renewable energy, recycling, biomass waste, and the biomass waste could be anything ranging from sawdust, coffee husk, rice husk, coconut shells, anything biodegradable into biomass briquettes, which are high calorific value and economic and eco-friendly, and they are mainly used by large institutions and for domestic use, and therefore we reduce carbon emissions and deforestation in the environment. So far, we directly impact 3 SDGs, which is number 7, affordable and clean energy, SDG number 8, good jobs and economic growth, and SDG number 13 for climate action. Our socio-economic impact so far, we have hired 15 employees directly and over 100 indirectly along the value chain. We've added additional income to the millers, and we've recycled so far over 4,000 metric tons of waste. And our environmental impact, we have mitigated over 3,500 carbon emissions equivalent to the environment. We have saved over 93,000 trees from being felled, and we have, of course, given a proper waste management and pollution control in the environment. Our business model is we get the waste from where they are. Mostly they are usually dumped in the environment, and we also partner with agri and agro-industrial processors where we collect the waste from them. We have our factory based in Nakuru County, a place called Maimahio. So we bring all the waste in a central place, and we briquette the waste. Then we directly take them to the market, and our model therefore becomes sort of a B2B model. And in the country, there is a demand for briquettes, and it is growing over the months, because the government has come in and brought in measures where it is encouraging factories and also domestic usage of alternative fuels that, of course, are economic and, of course, are 100% eco-friendly, so that we are able to even, save trees from being felled. Mainly in Kenya, people use firewood for domestic use and also for commercial use by industries. So industries are slowly transitioning into fuels that are saving the environment and reducing deforestation. There is over 50,000 metric ton demand per month of briquettes, and the demand is growing, and we are in a process of scaling up where we'll be able to meet the growing demand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. That's such an excellent history of how you came to this and all of the incredible impact that you're having already. So we can't wait to hear more, and that's a great overview. Thank you so much. Andreas, over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So hello, everyone. My name is Andreas. I'm the Deputy Director of Build Up Nepal. I'm very excited to be here today and tell a little bit about our innovation and my story. So in 2015, I went to Nepal to make my master's thesis. And within the first month, the unthinkable happened. So a massive earthquake hits the region and destroys 800,000 homes. It was really shocking and heartbreaking to see the poor families I had met during my research, how they lost what little they had, their houses and their income. But like with any outside shock, the earthquake also brought an opportunity to rebuild better and more sustainably. And with the realization that this can be done using local materials and by empowering local people, I decided to stay and help rebuild. So Build Up Nepal, the social business that I co-manage, today has been able to empower 300 rural entrepreneurs to build more than 6,000 safe, eco-friendly homes. It's been a really long and hard journey to get there, to be honest, but by sticking with it, not giving up essentially, turning really hard mistakes into learnings, we've slowly started making a difference. And today we have a scalable model where our team of 25 Nepali engineers and builders are training a growing network of rural entrepreneurs how to produce eco-friendly compressed stabilized earth bricks using only local soil and sand with just 10% cement, and how to build earthquake-resistant, low-cost, eco-friendly houses for poor families. So the entrepreneurs that we're recruiting and training, they are investing their own money in the machine, as well as their hard work, sweat, and tears to establish their enterprises. This is really, really the core of the model and what makes it scalable and sustainable. And using our off-grid machines that are very effective, they can produce bricks and build houses at 25% lower cost than any other material, which makes a safe house genuinely affordable for all families. And by using local materials, we're also reducing up to 80% of carbon emissions compared to fired bricks. And we're actually growing very quickly. The last couple of months, we've been struggling to keep up with demand and starting about 10 to 15 new enterprises every month. And by 2025, we're aiming to replace 5% of fired bricks by empowering 1,000 rural entrepreneurs to build more than 100,000 homes and also to start scaling internationally.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you so much for describing that moment, that challenge that really inspired a concrete solution after the earthquake. Thank you so much. And now, Mo, over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. Very inspiring stories. My name is Mohammed Tariq. I'm the founder of Earth. I founded it in 2018 with my co-founder Nahed, who happens to be my wife. I spent most of my adult life in Finland. I've been a tech entrepreneur for the last 15 years. But in 2018, we had just gotten married and we came to Malaysia on tourism. So we were visiting one of the largest digital lifestyle malls in the country. And in fact, I think it's in a Guinness World Record. It's so big. While near closing time, we saw a phone dealer pushing out of his shop a glass cabinet that had like 4,000 dusty and half-broken Nokia mobile phones. And Nokia was like our national pride. So like I was really wondering why he was doing that. So he said, well, I'm on the way to the garbage dump downstairs. Nobody wants these anymore. I'm about to rent out my shop lot, so I'm just going to throw it in the trash. And I said, but this is e-waste. You really can't do that. He said, well, here in Malaysia, we don't have a system for collecting this, so we all throw it in the trash. In the end, I made a deal. I bought the whole batch for $1,000. And the next day I took an Uber to a recycling factory and I sold the batch for $2,000. And that immediately gave us a eureka moment that if we can just connect the e-waste generator with the recycling factory, there is tremendous value to be done there, and you could already divert up to 90% of the toxic pollution away from landfills, which is the case here. Another strike of luck, if you want to call it that, was that China passed legislation in 2018 banning the import of most types of e-waste from abroad. So for the last 20 years, we've all been consuming personal electronics at an accelerating pace, but the countries didn't have a big problem, because at the end of their life, it was so easy to fill up a shipping container and just send it off to China. But in 2018, China decided that we can't do that anymore. We have so much pollution. So they stopped. And then a lot of the e-waste stream started to find alternative countries. And Malaysia was one of the top recipients of those rejected containers from China. So not only did Malaysia have a local problem, but it also had a problem coming from outside. And that's why we started a network called Earth. It's freelancers, 1,000 of them, that use their regular cars to go around and collect electronic waste. So any individual or business can fill up a booking, which takes 60 seconds, and the system will match the nearest hero to them. And the hero will proceed to do the pickup. And then we also pay a cash reward both to the hero as well as to the e-waste generator. And so far, we've diverted more than 500,000 kilograms of e-waste in the last 2 years from landfills. Yeah, we're now franchising this business because we think that this is a problem that exists in 200 countries around the world. So our playbook, I believe, and our platform can be used to scale the solution in other countries as well.
Thank you so much, Mo. Thank you for that very memorable image of the phones being thrown out, and gets it right to the local, and then connecting it to the regional and global with the challenges from China and others. So thank you so much. Really, really great overview. And now, David, over to you. David, you're muted, David. I think you're still muted. There we go. That? Perfect.
Right. Sorry about that. David Gallagher, I'm the CEO of Aeroson, and I noticed that on screen we have Prakash Amatya, who is our country rep in Nepal. Welcome, Prakash. Nice to see you here. We responded to the 2015 earthquake in Nepal, but we quickly realized that there was in fact a sanitation crisis in the Kathmandu Valley. There's one dreadful public toilet for every 50,000 inhabitants. And all of the waste from those toilets goes directly into the Bagmati River. So to meet this challenge, which we saw both as a need and as an opportunity, we build and manage toilet facilities in Kathmandu in a public-private partnership with municipalities, whereby they provide the land and the building, and we provide the rest. Our pay-for-use public toilets, they're economically viable because we have pre-COVID, obviously, or let's hope post-COVID, 800 users a day. So it's financially viable, and it's caters especially for women and includes a waste to value system that produces renewable energy and organic fertilizer from human waste. Socially, we train and offer dignified and well-paid jobs for our female operators from minority Dalit communities via their own sanitation workers co-op. And we greatly reduce health risks with a unique and thorough cleanliness protocol, plus touchless taps, hand dryers, and urinals. So we respond to many of the SDGs through this project. And our business model is essentially a circular economy. The input, obviously, is human feces, but the outputs are a modern, clean, safe community service, catering especially for women users, a source of renewable energy without destroying the environment, and lowering the carbon footprint, and a supply of organic fertilizer. So to date, we've built and we operate 5 of these toilets in Kathmandu and Lalitpur. But the really exciting news that we just got last week was that the Kathmandu Metro City, which is the biggest municipality in Nepal, has decided to adopt our design as the standard model for public toilets moving forward. And they have a plan to build 50 new toilets in Kathmandu based on our design. So we're very excited about that for the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for that. Again, starting with the earthquake, but also a pre-existing crisis in the country, and then moving to a sort of multifaceted solution. Very inspiring. You alluded to the pre-COVID, post-COVID realities, and we're going to now move into how this pandemic has affected your innovations. What kind of challenges did you face because of the pandemic? Did things change? Did it speed things up, slow things down, redirect your efforts? So just give us sort of an overview of how COVID has affected your work, and we'll go back to the beginning of the list and start with Jane again. Jane, over to you.
Thank you once again, Stephanie. COVID for us has been an interesting period. Back just an overview, in Kenya, we've had several lockdowns and within specific zones, and we happen to be located in those zones, and including most of our customers are located in those zones where we've had lockdowns. We've also been having curfews, several of them. Actually, just beginning of this month, a lockdown was opened up, but we had been closed for last 2 months. So COVID for us came at a time where we were actually gaining good traction, but then we were heavily affected because on one side, collection of raw materials, because we collect raw materials from all over the country. Transportation with the zoning and the curfews, lockdowns was a challenge. And then on the other hand, our major customers are industrials, large corporations, and most of them scaled down production. Schools are a market where we give briquettes, and last year, technically all schools were closed. So it brought us to a point where we had to think around and re-engineer our model and our processes so that we can remain resilient. And I can confidently say that when schools reopened towards the end of the year and beginning of this year, and factories, production, our customers, they increased their production from the slow moment that we had. We were able to continue our processes. So what we did last year was now we had to continue with our production, pile up stock, and then when market opens up, we were able to push out the goods. So actually COVID brought us to a point where we can see a bigger picture and think out of the box, and made us re-engineer processes, and we are happy with the direction where we are going. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. That sounds like came into COVID in a very strong and sort of resilient state, and you were able to capitalize on that. So that's an excellent example of, like you say, thinking outside of the box and taking what could be or what is a very difficult situation and trying to move forward. So thank you so much. Andreas, back to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So COVID for us has been a lot of up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. So in 2020, when COVID hit and Nepal confirmed its second case of COVID, the government made a 4-month, very, very strict lockdown. And now the second wave is happening in India and Nepal, and there's another lockdown. So the effect of the first lockdown, which will likely be the effect again, was disease was kind of went down a lot. But it'll also have, like last year, disastrous unintended consequences. So last year, the country came to a complete halt. The companies had to close, millions lost their jobs, poverty increased, hundreds of thousands of people moved not from the two cities, but from cities back to rural areas. So for weeks and weeks, the buses were packed. And the people returning were often returning to unsafe housing and unemployment. And in the middle of the darkest month there, we were asking ourselves, how will we pay our salaries their next, how will we pay our employees their next salary? And that's also when we started seeing the first glimpse of hope. And this was that this massive trend of returning people, driven people with savings from abroad and from the cities to rural area actually spiked an interest and demand from these places to start a business. And there's not that many business opportunities that are viable and where you can earn a living in rural Nepal. And so essentially what we saw was that just like the earthquake in 2015, the pandemic has been a real catastrophe in so many ways. But at the same time, we're convinced at Build Up Nepal, and me personally, that we don't have the luxury to wait to solve our global challenges, such as the climate crisis or inequality. So what we believe is that entrepreneurship and empowering people from the ground up is one of the most effective ways that we can reach the SDGs. And many of the youth, women, migrants that we're working with, they never wanted to leave in the first place. They actually had to. And we're very, very happy now that we've been able to scale up and to support so many people that have returned from building football stadiums in Gulf countries to now take up opportunities to home. And actually, before the pandemic, we were supporting maybe 6 to 8 new enterprises per month, and that doubled once the country opened up again. So we haven't been able to keep up with machine demand. And I think what I'm trying to say with this story is that the pandemic is terrible. It's brought massive, massive change, but it's really important to remember that in that change, there's always an opportunity to bounce back and build better. And by building on the inherent potential of rural villagers and entrepreneurs in Nepal, that's how we are part of the solution. And if anyone else wants to contribute to the recovery from the pandemic, my advice is to look for those opportunities. And whatever you do, never, ever give up. That's probably the most important lesson we've learned this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. Yes, I think that is an important lesson to never give up, but also the taking advantage of a situation and that you described of the residents returning to their rural communities and coming back with skills from abroad. And I think that's, taking stock of exactly what's going on in the community and trying to pivot and capitalize on that. That's very instructive and inspiring for, I think, many situations. So thank you. And now, Mo, how did COVID affect your
a little more than a year ago, in March 2020, Malaysia announced its first lockdown for 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, we were just looking at each other and wondering, are we going to make it? We had our fixed costs, we had our big warehouse and everything, all the costs of running the company didn't go away, but we were unable to fulfill the pickup orders. But something remarkable started happening. We noticed that our order book was rapidly growing, such that at the end of the 6-week period, it surpassed the entire 2019 order book in 6 weeks. So that's because a lot of people during the lockdown stayed at home, and they had more time to notice all the electronics that they don't use anymore, the ones that they wanted to discard but haven't done it in 10 years or something like that, and they just started to come on our website and make bookings. So when we came back, I remember the day, it was 4th of May 2020. The government announced that some economic activity can resume. We had the busiest 6 months of our lives, and then we closed the year 2020 having grown as a company by 4 times. One more thing happened was because of a lot of the schools were closed and a lot of work from home and e-learning, so there was actually a shortage of affordable computer devices in the market, and we noticed that, and we started to give our customers the option. So some of our customers are like a Fortune 100 companies, so they're like DHL and NTT and some really big United Nations are our customer. So we started giving customers the option that if they decide to not get the cash reward that we pay for the items, then we won't generate any revenue from those particular items either, but rather we would refurbish them and give them away to students. So far, we have put more than 500 computing devices, either very affordable or completely free, depending on the level of donation of the entity that donated the devices. And more than 500 devices are now in the hands of students for e-learning and work from home and things like that. So this is, e-waste touches on 6 of the SDGs. And it is a problem that touches all of us. I mean, wherever you have people using technology, which is all around the world, and it's rapidly accelerating, we are part of the solution to digital illiteracy, but we are also creating a problem of toxic pollution. And we really need to get on the circularity of electronics in our lives.
Thank you so much, Mo. Thank you. It sounds like all of you have really grabbed onto this horrible situation of COVID as an opportunity in some ways. And I liked especially how you described, looking at the needs in the community and the fact that there were shortages of electronic devices with so much homework and school, and sort of made some allowances to try to fill that need while growing your company at the same time. So that's very inspiring. Thank you so much. David, tell us how Aeroson dealt with the COVID situation. Unmute, David.
Okay. As a public service, we were obviously greatly affected by the lockdown last year, and our user count went down by some 70%. And it's taken us between last year's lockdown, which ended in August, September, to this year's lockdown. It took us a lot of work to change our toilets so that they were COVID-free, full PPE for the operators, regular testing for the operators, etc. And we began to build up the user numbers again, up to just perhaps a drop of 30% instead of 70%. But we're into lockdown again. And because we share, as Andreas knows well, we share an 1,800-kilometer border with the disaster, which is India. It is likely that this particular lockdown will be a long one again. The figures are not very good. But what we did last time, and the key to this, was our sanitation workers co-op, these 500 Dalit women who live in informal settlements all over Kathmandu and Lalitpur. We pivoted so that we manufactured hand sanitizer and soap and put together health kits. in a bucket, in fact, masks, sanitary pads, sanitizer, soap, towels, all the rest. And our operators became the educators in their own informal communities. So we distributed something like 1,000 of these health kits to families in these informal communities. And that was quite successful. And we worked closely with the municipalities, who at the same time made sure that the water tanks were full so that hand washing could take place. Plus, they provided food to complement this particular situation, because people in informal settlements are what's known in Nepal as day workers. They basically live day by day on the wages they get, so they can fall pretty quickly. So we pivoted all of our work and all of the operators working in those informal settlements. So, and we luckily, as Prakash will tell you, one of our local NGOs, Guti, who we work closely with, had a chemist on their board of directors, and he told us how to make hand sanitizer. And so the actual co-op started to make hand sanitizer, which was very useful. So I think this time we'll do the same thing again, because it's a way of doing something useful in a lockdown, and it also keeps our operators engaged. The only problem, of course, is finding enough funding to do these things, and that's where we're very active in trying to fundraise for this period, because we estimate that this lockdown will probably go on for several months. So, but it's an opportunity to keep things going. And we've decided to install touchless taps, touchless hand dryers, automatic urinals, so that we keep the risk level, the health risk level, down as far as possible. We're also working with an outfit called Molecular Dynamics in Nepal, which is an offshoot of MIT. And what they do is they do disease profiling of the slurry from our toilets, and that includes COVID. And they also check on pathogen levels of the slurry, so that when we are ready to produce fertilizer, it's of a low pathogen level, so it can be used for food crops. So it's we're very active during this period, but you know, we're kind of, it's not a moment to make lots of money. We have to actively fundraise at this time to try and keep the whole operation going. But everybody's very positive.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Again, just incredible how Aeroson was able to pivot and look to the local communities, to the workers' co-op, and sort of imagine. I mean, that's the common theme in all of these, is this creativity of seeing a big wall in front of us, which is COVID, and finding a way around it, and helping the community in the meantime with those health kits. That's just an amazing.
If I could just add, on screen is Prakash Amatya.
Yes.
And he has been key in this whole operation, and I just want to publicly congratulate him. He's an amazing.
So I'm going to bring Prakash in the next round, if that's okay. If Prakash, you could be ready to speak to the next round. In fact, we're now going to move into sort of the post-COVID world, whatever that looks like. And I do feel like a lot of you have already started to talk about what, the way you pivoted and how that will lead sort of into the future and into how your innovations are scaling up and developing. So maybe frame the next interventions in terms of what, and David actually started to do this as well, what we as an audience, as an international community, as the UN can do to help as you move forward. So talk about, briefly about plans for the post-COVID world, but also what we as a community can do and what you need to try to make some of those steps forward. And I will flip the order a little bit. So Prakash, if you want to speak to some of that, or we also will have some questions from the audience after we have this next round. So David, you let me know, does Prakash want to speak now or during the Q&A?
I think he prefer the Q&A.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
So welcome, Prakash. Excellent. So let's mix up the order a little bit. Mo, let's start with you. What do you need? What's your vision, very briefly, for the post-COVID world, and what would be useful and necessary from the international community?
I think it's a reality that COVID has created years of digital transformation in a very, very short period of a few months. And this can only mean one thing, that our usage of computing devices, electronic devices is going to continue to accelerate. And I think that not enough people recognize that this is one of the major problems of the age, because we're not going to go back to the Stone Age. We need to use technology, but at the same time, these technologies are contaminating the planet for centuries after we're gone. And I think we've all watched the movie Wall-E, and I don't think that we really want to face that reality, or at least our children or grandchildren. So I think everyone needs to get on board, realize that we really need to act on this now, and also realize that it's not just a feel-good thing. It has a real measurable impact. So many of the big Fortune 100 companies that work with us are much more keen on the statistics, the data. How much greenhouse gas have I offset by giving you my electronics for recycling? And 1 kilogram of recycled electronics, this is according to the Basel Action Network, can offset up to 10 kilograms of greenhouse gases. So you can look very good as a corporation on your annual sustainability report if you're generating, like, let's say 10 tons or 20 tons of e-waste. So I think it's an opportunity, and I think e-waste, someone could actually argue that the solid waste pie, e-waste only represents 3%. Why are you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about plastic or food waste or one of the other ones? No, actually, these 3% is responsible for 70% of the toxic heavy metal contamination in our environment, and it is solvable. So I really don't see why it hasn't been solved yet. So our vision is to just open up our playbook. I mean, going back to the Finnish roots again, open source, just like Linux, the operating system, we're open sourcing our intellectual property. We're any entrepreneur anywhere in the world, and this is an open invitation. If you want to copy us, exactly what we do in your country, please get in touch. We'll give you the playbook. We'll help you in every way we can, and we don't even need any economic incentive. We just really believe that this could happen, and I don't think that we can have the time or funding to go around open offices in 200 countries. I think it's the local entrepreneurs in each country that can really help scale this up.
Thank you so much, Mo. And in fact, one of the top questions that's getting a lot of likes in our Slido is a question that you answered, which is, how do you balance scaling the impact of your business and scaling your business on the financial economic side? So you answered that question, and that's part of your vision moving forward. So that's just excellent. So Jane, I'm going to go to you next. If you want to sort of think about that question, which came from the audience, how do you balance scaling your impact with scaling your business? Sort of add that into your thinking as you describe sort of your next steps and looking forward to the post-COVID world.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Once again, we normally work a lot with people who are disadvantaged, women and the youth. Disadvantaged in the sense maybe they come from a background that is very poor, or disadvantaged in terms they never went to school and therefore they cannot get formal employment. And we train them, because some of this work, actually majority of this work, besides now the processing bit, collection and all that, does not require a lot of technical know-how. So we train them. So how we have been able to balance the two is that we, at the ground level, we target youths and the women who have been disadvantaged because of all these reasons and more. And we are able to involve them in the value chain collection, sorting and processing in our factories. And we are able to give them jobs, sometimes indirect jobs through casuals. You know, there's this work that needs to be done immediately. So we bring them up, and then some of them, we hire them full time. But then that has now made us to rethink our model, and especially because of COVID, and what we are thinking, because we are now actually thinking out of the box. How can we have a more human-centered approach and an inclusive innovation approach where we include everyone along the value chain, and we bring on board a model where even at the ground level, the women and the youth are more empowered, even as we collect this waste and as they bring this waste. For us to be able to go that direction, we need to test new models, and for that we need some stimulus to come in so that we are able to, because at the ground level, what really works in Kenya is that people need cash upfront. The sorters, the collection, where they're collecting, they need the money to pay the raw materials, to bring the raw materials to a central place where we can collect them, because we can only collect them when it is in bulk, and they are not able to because they are actually economically disadvantaged. So we need that stimulus to go forward, to be able to have an inclusive model. And I feel that will be, propel us forward in the next phase, because when we include everyone, the impact will be greater, because now we'll have more women, more youth on board, and as well as we will scale, because we'll have raw materials well collected at different centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. That answered the question and gave us a good sense of what you need, which not surprisingly is resources and financial backing. So hopefully some of our audience members and some of the UN agencies and organizations and member states will hear that, and we'll be in touch, and we will do what we can to raise your profile and help you make those connections. So thank you. Now, Andreas, over to you. How do you see the next phase, and how will that balance of community impact and benefits for the country and the local community balance with scaling up the business?
So yeah, thank you a lot, and I'll try and keep it brief. So a little bit like Mo said, I also want to highlight, like, when we think about climate change or environmental challenges, everyone thinks about kind of the food we eat, the car you're driving, and the airplanes, but there's so many other areas. And then we feel, and I feel very strongly for the construction sector. So in most of South Asia, they are using technologies from the 60s with very, very poor filtration, burning essentially coal. And in Nepal, they drive the coal up poor Himalayan roads, and then it's very, very poor working conditions. So it's so much bad stuff. But we are very excited because there is better ways that are not expensive to do this more sustainably and cheaper and more earthquake resistant. And that is what we're looking forward to after the pandemic. And one real key learning that we've seen in the pandemic has also been the key of affordability. So that has really been before the pandemic, and even more now when the pandemic hit, that to really make green solutions scalable, you have to make it incredibly affordable. Because in the coming years, the trend of people upgrading their lives, working their way out of poverty, improving their housing, improving all kinds of situations will happen. And if we're going to make sure that the bulk of people, the billions of people, can have access to good products that are also green, then those green products needs to be both better and greener and cheaper than the alternatives. So in the coming years, we're really looking to double, triple, or even quadruple our efforts on R&D to make sure that we are so much cheaper and so much better than the alternatives that there is no question on what material you should choose. And yeah, with that conviction, we're hoping to scale up like we're doing with entrepreneurs in Nepal. Of course, they need to invest their own money in the machine and get started, but then we do whatever we can to help them. And then whoever else wants to learn from us or share experiences, we're happy to share.
Thank you so much, Andreas. And your answer talking about the the reality that you need to make sure that the conditions are correct and that the solution that you're offering is affordable and viable. It brings to mind another question, which I think I'm going to pivot over to David. There are a couple of questions actually, David, that are directly for Aeroson, but I also want to put it in a slightly bigger context, which is the role of the government. All of you have alluded to sort of partnerships with government to different extents, and I think David, you talked about working quite closely. So if you could talk a little bit more about how that worked, what if there were both the local partnerships, but also any policies that were able to help you develop your business model. And then if it's okay, I'm going to pile on another question that came from the audience for you, which is, can you talk a little bit more about your the cost model for the innovation, and does it require subsidies? That was the question. So I think you've
I'm sorry, what was that last one?
The cost model for your innovation, and does it require subsidies, which then gets back to the question of the partnership with government. So if you can talk sort of answer that question, but also talk broadly in terms of the partnership with government.
Okay, well, I think I've established that there is a crisis in sanitation in the valley in Kathmandu, and that our model has proven that we have a solution to that, even though it's on a small scale at the moment, only 5 toilets. But clearly the market is there and the need is there. But the key issue is that the Kathmandu metro city, which is, as I said, the biggest municipality in Nepal, has decided that they like our model so much that they've adopted it as the standard for the future. And they intend to build 50 new toilets based on that standard. And they want us to participate with them in co-financing and in operating these toilets. So what happens is the arrangement with the municipalities was largely due to Prakash and his efforts with the municipalities. But basically, the deal is they supply the land for free, which is hugely expensive in Kathmandu. They also build the outer building, and Aeroson fundraises to build the inner facilities of the toilet, the anaerobic digester, the rainwater harvesting system, and the grey water recycling system. So these are all systems that save on energy, on water, and all the rest. So that's our if you like, our super toilet, which we just finished in Buddha Park in Kathmandu, has all of these facilities, including Wi-Fi. For example, we had a good example of there are no fewer than 86 small vendors that surround our toilet in Buddha Park. And they came to us and said, can you please install Wi-Fi so that we can use your toilet as a school for our children to do online learning? So it's really become a community endeavor, and that's why the municipalities are so keen to be involved. So when we come to this question of money, it's not cheap to build a toilet with all of these facilities and touchless taps and all the rest, and rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling and anaerobic digester. By the way, sustainability is assured because we only use local technology and expertise, and that's a key factor for us. Anyway, the cost varies depending on how much space we have, depending on the site, but we're looking at something in the region of $40,000 per facility that we need to carry this off. And the government matching arrangement would be 3 times that amount because of the cost of land, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, David.
So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to end on that very concrete note of what we need. We need resources to make these innovations happen. There were some questions that we didn't get to, but we will share those among the 4 of you, and hopefully we can reach out to, we can include them in the summaries that will be available on our website, on the GIE website. Everyone, please, before you go, take a picture of this slide, get in touch with our innovators. Thank you all so much for a wonderful session, and everyone in the audience and in this community, please keep in touch with us. We will, like I said, we'll post the recordings, we'll post summaries, and we'll include some of those questions in the summaries and get some answers from our panelists. So thank you all so much. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, and goodbye.